Hey there, Danny here. Welcome to my ramblings. Yes, we are already in bed. But this just came to my head, and I gotta take the glasses off because then I can't put my. There. Okay, now we're good. um, this came into my head. I was thinking about this. So, when I was my journey to um, being less judgmental and more open minded um, actually started when I was 22 or 23, and the guy I was dating at the time had his friend and her girlfriend over. Now, this wasn't the first time I met her. I knew her. I knew her a little bit, and we worked at the same place, not in the same area. We worked at a resort. She was doing hair. She was a hairstylist, and I was a waitress in the restaurant. But we did see each other from time to time, and I really liked this girl. I don't remember her name. It was a long time ago. I'm going to be 52, so you're looking at what, 30 years ago. Anyways, this was my first real encounter that caused me to realize how powerful my words could be if I 100% believed what I was saying. And it made me really stop and rethink a lot of things in life. So they were over at our house. My kids were there. They were in the bedroom playing. We were having some cocktails. I don't remember how we got on the subject, but abortion got brought up. And I opened my mouth 100% because I did not believe in it. I always said that I understood it. If you were raped or molested or something like that, or it was a life or death thing, I understood why you would do it then. But any other reason, I 100% was against abortion. And I held this belief very firmly, very strongly. I felt a very strong conviction towards it. And why I did was irrelevant, but I did. And I, 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 I shouldn't say it's irrelevant. It's not. It's probably one of the most relevant parts of it. Is I was raised in the Seventh Day Adventist Church. That would be essentially murder. Um, it would go against all the teachings that I had learned, and I couldn't fathom doing that. So I shared that piece with her, with them, about how I understand that if you were raped, molested, or, it was life or death, I could understand you doing it. But other than that, I don't understand anybody who would have an abortion for anything other than those reasons. I think that that would be very selfish. And I said this. I did not know that she had had one. She got up and left the room. And I looked at her boyfriend and I'm like, I'm sorry, did I say something wrong? I said, I'm just sharing how I believe about it. And he said, she had one in college. And I still at that very moment believed in my convictions, in my stance on it. But at the same extent, I had this overwhelming, awful feeling. How could I make such a definitive judgment call that would hurt somebody that I liked? I did not mean to hurt her. So I went in to the other room where she was. She went in by my kids and was playing by the kids. And I went in there and then I asked the kids to go out and play by the guys. And I proceeded to apologize to her and tell her that I'm very, very sorry, that I should have never said it that way, that it was wrong, that even though I believe this way, if she could help me understand why she felt that choice was right and correct for her, that I would think about it. I really would think about it and see if I could change my stance on it. And she did. She shared with me why she did it, what happened, how it got there. I walked away from that. I apologized. I felt horrible. I felt horrible that that my belief that I had inside of me, this belief that was preconditioned into me, it was taught to me. It wasn't necessarily what I personally believed, but it was what was taught to me, what was right or wrong. And that was the first time that I realized that, oh my God, having that type of a belief just forced me to hurt another human being. And I felt like the biggest piece of shit in the world. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I spent, it would pop in my head from time to time, and I would think about it. And I would think to myself, I'm not in her shoes. How can I make such a definitive belief and judgment about somebody that I haven't walked in their shoes? I don't know what they're going through. How wrong of me was it to be that judgmental in general? And after that, it didn't change the fact that I still believe that abortion should be there if you are molested, raped, or life or death. The rest of it I still do think is wrong. For me. I could never say it's wrong for somebody else. And prior to this incident that I'm sharing with you, where my conviction, my belief judged another human being and made them feel shitty, which made me feel shitty, I had realized that prior to this instance, I had known a couple of people who had them, who had abortions. And it wasn't because of anything other than their lack of taking care of their protection. And so I took what I saw and what I was taught, and I turned that into my belief. The problem was I didn't consider the other side of the situation, which was there could be other extenuating circumstances that would cause somebody to do that. And the likelihood of it happening is not high, because if you use protection, there still is a small percentage that you could end up pregnant. And at that point, you took your precautions. I 100% believe that you have every right to do that. But the thing is I had to hurt somebody. Unknowingly, I had to hurt somebody to realize that the people I surrounded myself with had reinforced what I had been taught. But that wasn't the whole world. That wasn't everyone. And so when I was 22 or 23, it was when I realized how powerful your convictions, your beliefs, and your words can be. You can seriously hurt people with them. And that's when I started really evaluating a lot of things. I started watching my interactions with people. I started watching how I said things to them, because I never wanted to make anybody feel that way again. It hurt me because I hurt her. And I didn't ever want to hurt another human being that way again. And I didn't do it on purpose. I did it based off of what society said was okay. But I didn't see it that way after I had hurt her. And I apologized. I don't know that I will ever be able to express the sorrow that I still feel to this day for having been so young and dumb. And so I went through the rest of my adult life when I had to give somebody the truth, or I had to state one of my beliefs. I always specified me and how it would affect me only. And I would specify that everybody else has their own beliefs and their own convictions that they have to deal with, and that's got nothing to do with me. I specified this over and over the rest of my adult life because I did not want anybody else to feel that way. I was the cause of her hurt, and I couldn't stand to think that I could do that to somebody. Now, on the other hand of that, though, is once I discovered that about the words, that's when people who did have bad intentions, who did have they wanted to use me and whatever else, that's when I learned my words are very, very powerful. And so I took them from the beliefs and the judgment, and I threw them over to the people that deserved them, in my opinion, at the time. And then I would grow to realize, and it would take a lot of years for me to realize this piece, is that I don't know why they're that way. Hurt people hurt people. Misery loves company. And anybody who wants to drag you into misery or wants to hurt you is hurting in misery themselves. How could I be so wrong to think that I could use my words like that? But I did. I did. It wouldn't be until 2020, when I started on this journey a little over 5 years ago, that I realized that part of it. And it really got solidified because I was a year and 3 or 4 months into this journey, this learning to love myself and find my true authentic self. I wasn't dating. I joked that my picker was off. My mother had passed, and once she had passed, something changed in me like instantly. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you the reason behind why. Almost like, okay, I don't have to tolerate her craziness anymore. So I don't have to tolerate anyone's, was basically how my brain went. And, excuse me. And I started interacting with people a lot differently, especially the bitter, cold, mean people. I stopped being mean back to. because at that point I realized they're not mad at me. They're not bitter at me. They're bitter and they're mad because they're not wanting to deal with their hurt, their pain. And they have every right to hold on to that if they want. It's not my job to save them. The truth was, I had to save me from my hurt and my pain. And that's what these last 5 years have been. And I cannot tell you how it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. I'm just, it's a small obstacle. It's a small hill that I have to go over. If something major happens, well, that's a big mountain that I got to get over. But I know from my history and all of my adult life that no matter how many times I had to climb up a hill or a mountain, I always came back better than I was the last time. So even if I had to climb a hill or a mountain, I just had to climb it. When I got there, it'd be better than it was before. And then when I'd fall back down into the valley, I wouldn't know whether I had a hill or a mountain. But whatever was there, I climbed it every time. Every time it got better. And that's all I kept doing. I kept repeating to myself all of my adult life, just keep moving forward. Even if I'm just crawling, even if I'm taking one step and a break, just keep moving forward. So I would have a plan for where I wanted to go in my life. This is where I'm headed next. So if I was in a relationship, it was, okay, this person and I are together. We have our future. Okay, so we're gonna follow this path down this future. And then something would happen and they would change their mind that they didn't want that future. And at that point, I'd be like, okay, so I know where I'm headed in my life. I know the things that I want to do. And so we're just going to start chasing after the things that I want to do. And we'll deal with life as it comes. And so this is all I did, was I just kept my focus on where I was headed in life. And that was that list that I made for myself when I was 13 or 14. If you've watched my previous videos, I've talked about it a couple of different times. But that list was where I kept my focus. I had no clue when I wrote it at 13 or 14 that I was writing out my future. I knew I was writing my future, but I forgot that I had written it because I didn't follow it the way that I had pictured it in my head when I wrote it. However, the fact that I wrote it down, if you look back over my life, there are only two things left on that list left to do. I've done every single one of the other things that were on that list. And they weren't done in the order or in the way that I had imagined them, the way that I thought it should be. They were nothing like when I wrote it. But deep down, I planted the seed of these things that I wanted. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And it wasn't that I kept track of that list. It was little things that would come in life and I'd be like, "Ooh, I want this really bad." And I'd work like when I went to go buy a house. That was on my list, but it wasn't like, "Oh, let's go buy a house." It was, let's look into buying a house and see what we've got to do so we can get into one. And I spent 2 or 3 years cleaning up the second ex-husband and I's credit just so we could buy a house. And this is all that we were focused on for this period of time was getting into a house. I had this crazy belief that if I just had a house, I could be happy. I could be content, because when I almost became homeless with my kids after my first divorce, I had nowhere to go. And I had nobody to help me. And I couldn't go back to my mom. She lived in government housing. And I had nowhere to go. So in my mind, I believed that if I bought a house, then my kids always had a place to come to. Even though they would if I was renting or anything else. So why the house part, I don't know. But so I worked very hard, and we got into the house, and six months or so in, I was sitting out back looking at it. It was a beautiful house. It was everything we wanted. Not quite in the neighborhood I wanted, but close enough. And so I was like, sitting there looking at everything, and I'm like, this is it. So I just spent the last 2-3 years working so hard for this, and now what? We just sit here and work and take our vacations, and the kids grow up, and we wait to die? I mean, at that point, I'm like, why to kill myself for this? It doesn't matter. I can go ahead and rent, and then the kids can come. What? And at that point, I was like, I don't know if this was all worth it. Well, we got in 2004, the beginning of the housing market collapse. It was before it started to rise up. So we got our house at like $185,000, but it would have cost 6 months after we bought it. You probably could have sold the thing for $400,000 easily. And I didn't want to. I wanted to hold on to it, but in order to do that, because we got in on 2 mortgages, an adjustable rate mortgage, and then the second mortgage, which paid for the down payment. Anyways, so we knew we had 2 years to be able to refinance into a conventional loan. But in order to do that, we needed to make more money. And I applied for jobs, and any place I would get would pay me maybe $1 more than I was already making. And then I'd have to drive. So I'd have that $1 more wasn't going to do me any good, because that and then some would be going to gas. So I'm like, okay, so how am I going to do this? And so I decided to do my research, and I could get a 2-year degree in 18 months if I busted my ass. That would give me enough time to be able to do this. And then I'd have a month or so to be able to get a job. So when it came time, everything was good. This was my plan. And that's what I did. And the whole time going through the process of college, we made too much money. So we were having to pay every month out of our pocket for me to go to college. And we really didn't have the money, but we managed to figure it out. And when I finished, I my whole life for 18 months was, I would get a week off every 3 months. Otherwise, during that whole time, Monday through Thursday, I went to school. There were a couple of times where I went Monday through Friday. But I always backed off to 4 days because 5 was just way too much. So, and I worked a full-time job. My kids were in junior high. When this all took place, it was, actually, I think one was in junior high and one was just before junior high. But it was a tough time, and I just did it. I just did it. I just did it. I did what I had to do. And when I got done and I got a paralegal job, I was so ecstatic. I was living this great, wonderful dream. And holy shit, I had that on my list too when I was 13 or 14. And then I started thinking about the list. And I thought, oh my God, I've already crossed off a bunch of stuff from that list. I had forgotten totally about the list. I still remembered what was on it, but, and I chased them. I didn't even realize that I was chasing that list. I planted these seeds when I was 13 or 14, and as life kept coming, I just kept pushing towards those seeds. And no matter what happened in between, I'd deal with, but I'd always go back to pushing for these seeds that I had planted. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing until I finished college. And at that point, sorry, my shoulder gets a little tense. Anyways, at that point, I still don't have a laptop. At that point, I started to realize, shit, I've been pushing myself to literally fulfill that list. And so I started thinking about what was on that list. And I did it all backwards. And from then on, I stay focused on what I got to do. And I do those things as they come. There were 2 things on the list after college. There were 2 things on the list that are still on the list. And when people would ask me about it, close family, friends, people that knew about this list, I would tell them, I can't do the last 2. They have to happen when I'm older. Because I have to have wisdom and experience for the last 2 things. And I said this all the time. I laugh after I'd say it, though. Because in my head, I was joking about it. But in reality, I wasn't. I wasn't joking about it. I was literally, this is what I was. I planted the seeds when I was 13 or 14. And I slowly but surely spent the rest of my life just chasing those seeds that I planted. No matter what happened, I just kept doing what the seeds told me to do. I just kept going, and they kept growing, and I'm working on the last 2 here in my 50s, and I can say it's been a hell of a ride. When these 2 things come true, I shouldn't say come true, when they happen, nobody can ever tell me dreams don't come true. And nobody can ever tell me you can't do that. That'll never happen for you. Because when those 3 things are said to me, it clicks something in my brain up here that says, really? Let me show ya. And I will stay focused. Anyways, I just wanted to share that about your beliefs and how they could be judgmental towards others, and how your words are swords. They can really cut somebody deeply. I don't have road rage like I used to. If you were to have sat in the car with me when I first started doing delivery in 2020, and you sit in the car with me now, they're 2 totally different people. So this is why I talk to you guys all the time about finding your true authentic self and loving yourself, because the world becomes such a nicer place to be. Anyways, I will leave you with that. I can hear my dog over here making noise. So it might be time to go out one more time before bed. Anyways, have a great night, guys. Love ya. Bye.